Once you go below this 8 degrees, you're in a different realm of fight or flight. We want response, not reaction. We don't want this kind of... Because once you're already in that, the nervous system's like, oh shit, get out.
Kev O'Neill, founder of Breathevolution, joining today. Kev's a cold water therapist, but also runs cold water therapy instructors course to teach others. And people are doing those things as they're getting into the water.
99% of people close their eyes, their gaze goes down, and they go inward, especially people that are suffering with PTSD and with trauma, etc.
Our cold shower is a good intro to cold water therapy or cold water benefits.
Anything that you need to know about cold water is on the internet. Some of it's useful, some of it's complete blether, some of it's poppycock, nonsense and ego. If you get into water and hold your breath, you can hold your breath for much longer. But while you're swimming around underwater, or you've got your head underneath the water, you're also utilising oxygen at the same time, and there's always a possibility of blackout or fainting underwater.
Yeah, okay.
And this is why there's been quite a lot of deaths with the Wim Hof method.
Kev, sauna or ice bath if you were to buy only one for home?
Ice bath.
What's the ideal temperature for an ice bath to get the health benefits?
Baseline, I would say 10 degrees is ideal.
Okay, perfect. Give me one thing that should never have been invented.
Atom bomb.
Okay, got it. What's an everyday situation that breathwork can help with?
Disconnection.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, are some people better suited to cold than others?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Amazing. Right, I look forward to diving into all of these shortly. But for listeners of the show, we've got Kev O'Neill, founder of Breathevolution, joining today. So Kev's a cold water therapist, but also runs cold water therapy instructors course to teach others. Kev's an advanced oxygen advantage trainer and Buteyko breathwork coach. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Yep.
You turned your own life around after addiction using breathwork and cold exposure, and you now worked with over 3,000, perhaps even close to 4,000 people through all sorts, such as PTSD, ADHD. You've also been referred to as the UK's equivalent of Wim Hof, whatever you like to think about that. But you're also a good friend, and you've become a good friend of Exhale over the years. You actually took me and Kirsty first into the water in the Peak District about 5 years ago. We've been back since. And welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Al. Yeah, I remember taking you and Kirsty in to the river at Fernie Lee in the Peak District near Whaley Bridge.
How did we do? Lots of nervous laughter, I guess.
Yeah, loads of nervous laughter, and the whole industry has obviously just gone crazy since then, hasn't it? And,
yeah.
Everything's changed. Like obviously, what we're going to be sort of talking about today. But thanks for having me onto your Exhale podcast. Super excited. I'd see where it goes for you.
Thank you. So first of all, you've been working on some research projects you were just telling me about with a doctor. Do you want to maybe give a little bit of a background on that and what you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since I started, I've taken in thousands of people into the cold in group sessions, a lot of one-to-ones, some small groups, couples, like with you and Kirsty. Yep. But what was becoming really apparent was how people responded to the cold, and obviously variation in temperature, conditions, environment, all having significant factors, and the difference between getting in the cold on your own and getting in a group or in a couple is massively different. So basically, I'm working with Dr. Luana, and she's at King's College in London, and she's an amazing researcher, and we're working with some other researchers as well to look at dissociative behaviours and habits that we form before getting into the cold. Mental, physical and emotional habits that we have before getting in, and during, of course, after the cold as well. So it's just diving in a little bit deeper, pardon the pun, into how humans respond to stress, and how we can use that functionally really to help people with their, not cure people, but just help people process their PTSD and their complex PTSD and trauma and obviously other mental health conditions as well, depression, anxiety. You mentioned ADHD before, which is rife at the moment. So it's working closely with these people so that they can use the cold effectively to create responses, not reactions. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So responses, not reactions. So is this talking about? So yeah, what exactly do you mean by that then? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but go on.
How long have you got? How long have you got? Yeah, I suppose it's to do with intention as well, and really what Dr. Luana has coined as the Breathevolution method. Not my idea, but what they're calling is the Breathevolution method is the build up, the lead up, and the communication between the coach, the instructor, the therapist, whatever it is you want to call the person, explaining how the stressor works, the build up and the connecting of the dots as to what's going to happen when the body's put under stress. And the cold always delivers. It always does the same thing, really, within reason. I say the same thing. It's always slightly different.
Yeah.
But it always delivers the same physiological response in the nervous system because it's really quite specific cold water as opposed to cold air.
Yeah.
So it's allowing people to especially people that are suffering with PTSD and with trauma, etc. It's allowing them to use the cold and connect to it differently so that they're responding rather than reacting. So we're trying to avoid too much of this and too much of eye closure, too much of this perhaps, and maybe this, and sudden check-in, and exit check-in, physical attributes that you've picked up over the years to try and avoid or dissociate from stress.
And people are doing those things as they're getting into the water.
99% of people close their eyes, their gaze goes down, and they go inward.
Because that was one of the biggest things that I actually took away from our sessions, many sessions together, is that actually if you go into the water thinking it's going to make you cold and your body reaction is kind of tensing up, your shoulders are raising and hunching, then you're going to feel the cold and you're going to have a negative experience. But it's kind of, controlling your physical reaction before you get into the water and how you get into the water.
Yeah, and all that is sort of put into that little box of kind of intention, really. And intention is really difficult because obviously the brain's thinking 80% negatively to try and get you back to safety. It's an uncomfortable thing getting in the cold, or it can be. So trying to set people's intentions is not easy. Trying to get people to feel the difference between an inhale and an exhale can take an hour. It can take 2 minutes. It can take 2 weeks. It just all depends on the individual, which is why all the information that you get back from this, really, all the research is all based on anecdotal information that we receive, because every human's reaction and response to stress is different.
Okay. So there's obviously some pretty hugely profound benefits to cold water and cold water therapy. But in terms of everyday benefits, so if we're talking about someone at home, like me, for example, if I was to buy, why might a listener want to get into cold water therapy, or what benefits might they get from it? Like just on an everyday level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in this world that we live in now, of comfort and availability, the world is at our fingertips. Anything that you need to know about cold water is on the internet. Some of it's useful, some of it's complete blather, some of it's poppycock nonsense and ego. Most of I would say, to be honest. But in terms of how it can benefit you, is it has all the physical attributes and it has all the physical connections, building resilience, physical resilience and emotional resilience as well, once you start to dive a little bit deeper. But the cold reflects really not just who you are in general, but it reflects how you are when you're stressed. So that can be utilized and used as long as there's a certain element of neuroplasticity taking place in terms of how you understand how you respond or react to stress, and you understand you. So this is why I just take so much more pleasure out of working with one-to-one now, because I'm getting far more effective results in the therapy side of it by working one-to-one, because generally, as humans, we need the resilience and we need the connections when we're alone.
I actually started getting into cold water therapy probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when my immune system was totally horrendous. Like I used to get a cold and it'd take me a month, weeks definitely to get over a cold. My immune system was terrible and I tried everything else. Nothing was working. So somehow my research led me on to cold water. And I started initially having cold showers for the first couple of years, and then I bought an ice bath for the garden. And then I took it a bit extreme, and actually it made things worse for me. But certainly in the early days, like that cold shower, I found that it really did help my immune system, but also starting the day with a cold shower, really, like if you face that, no one wants to start the day with a cold shower, but if you face that challenge of getting into cold water for 2 minutes at a time at the start of the day, then any challenges that are thrown at you throughout the day are almost easier to handle because you've already faced one big challenge in the morning. So would you recommend, so if people wanted to kind of start getting some benefits from this, is our cold showers a good intro to cold water therapy or cold water benefits?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, without going into too much detail regarding the immune benefits and the cold shock proteins, all the rest of the stuff that's out there, Gary Brecker will tell you all about that sort of side of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm concentrating mainly on the mental and emotional connections to it. But in terms of building resilience, making yourself uncomfortable pretty early in the morning, I would always leave it at least an hour before you get into a cold shower. And the reason I make that point is because your body's been flat for 8 hours, hopefully, if you're sleeping all that well. Just allowing osmosis and your blood pressure and your barrier reflexes to come back into place again by being on your feet for an hour, or at least being sat up before you start to commit to any kind of cold at all.
Okay.
But yeah, it's huge, and you get this massive release of dopamine, and depending on how cold you get and how long you stay in there and how you respond or react, of course.
Yeah. And what about the doing the breath work before the Wim Hof technique? So when I started out doing this, I'd do a few rounds of the Wim Hof technique, and then have the cold shower. I later kind of ditched the breath work side of it and just did the cold. But like, so if someone at home wants to get into this and give it a go, should they start with a few breaths before having a cold shower? Like, what's the protocol?
Yes, I suppose depending on what you want from it. Like I said, using the Wim Hof method is amazing. I used to use the Wim Hof method, and I'd do some sort of cyclic hyperventilation, do some breaths first, give myself some rest, and then get into the shower or get into the cold. Hyperventilating before getting in the cold is an absolute no-no.
Okay, good.
Because that is really not good for the body. A lot of people will argue that there are benefits to that, and there probably are some, but from a safety perspective, any kind of washing out of CO2 near water or in water is an absolute no-no. There's been just so many deaths with that now.
Washing out of CO2, hyperventilating. So there's that kind of the Wim Hof is quite hyperventilating. Is that what exactly do you mean by hyperventilating before?
Yeah, so taking these big, these deep breaths where you're exhaling more CO2 than your body can kind of comfortably sort of cope with. So you're exhaling, expelling a lot of carbon dioxide from your blood, and basically this puts you in an alkaline state. But it also has other effects in the body, and it also enables you to hold your breath for a lot longer because what's exciting your brain to take a breath is the buildup of CO2 in the blood. So if you wash out all that CO2, if you get into water and hold your breath, you can hold your breath for much longer. But while you're swimming around underwater, or you've got your head underneath the water, you're also utilizing oxygen at the same time, and there's always a possibility of blackout or fainting underwater.
Yeah, okay.
And this is why there's been quite a lot of deaths with the Wim Hof method.
Okay, so if someone wants to start out, so someone wants to start out, give cold showers a go, see if they have any benefits, what should they do? What's the deal? Should they start going to the shower on a cold shower? Should they start warm? How long should they do? Like, what's the best way to get into this?
Yeah, so just for the purposes of the safety aspect of it, never get into cold water unless you seek some sort of advice from somebody or medical advice. If you're over 40 years old and you don't know how good your vascular system is, you don't know how good your heart is, it's always best to have that checked. I think, for me, in terms of regulating this for safety, I think everybody over 40 before getting into cold should have an ECG just to make sure that your heart's in good health. And certainly anybody that's been obese or morbidly obese and then lost a lot of weight, they potentially leave themselves wide open for arrhythmias and potentially maybe damage that may have been caused to the heart when they were larger.
Right.
So just being careful of things like that and making sure that you're safe to get in. If you know that you're healthy and you know that you're fit and that you're good, just start by turning the temperature down. It doesn't have to be cold. Remember, this is an intention that you're going to set for something that you're going to do every day in a cold shower. You don't want to give yourself too much shock. And certainly if you're going to use the cold shower, use it at the end of your warm shower. Might be a little bit easier rather than just stepping into a cold shower, because obviously the body and the brain have been used to using that warm shower to wash away your day, wash away your grief, wash away your trauma. So in terms of how your brain associates with the shower, it's normally a comfort thing, a clean thing, a warm feeling, a hug. And then all of a sudden you're going to change it to something that feels quite uncomfortable. So just having to think about what the practice is for you would be a good start, and not going too cold too quick. Obviously in the winter, cold water in the shower is going to be much colder unless you're pouring.
So actually start in the summer. So if you're going to start doing this, start in the summer while the water's not too cold. And then by the time you get to the winter, you'll be more acclimatized or conditioned to the colder water, the colder tap water.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, always start off quite gentle and really remembering the and just focusing on those physical habits that you have before you get in the cold. So it's avoiding too much of this before we step in, because this, in terms of the kind of the somatics of your body and your body's ability to remember, being in this position is connected to potentially uncomfortable times in the past. So, the nervous system is kind of regressive by default. It'll be like, oh God, why are you doing this? And just by default, my kind of eyes kind of close up a little bit when I do this, and I'm not doing that intentionally. It just happens when I come up here. So it's a habit, really. It's remembering that's potentially from times where I felt uncomfortable. So if you physically put your body in an uncomfortable state, your nervous system is going to follow suit. So really, we should be getting the cold open and in command, really, which is quite difficult to do at first.
Very difficult, but very, very, useful. So you mentioned not too cold, and you said earlier about 10 degrees. So when people are getting into ice baths, Kev we had an Exhale Wellness area at the Henley Swim Festival a couple of years ago, and Kev came and represented Exhale, was on the stand with us, and I just found it so amazing how many people kept coming up to you and they saw you sitting by the ice bath, and they all kept saying, I've got an ice bath at home, I've got mine down to 2 degrees and I can stay in it for 15 minutes. And it almost sounded like a bit of a sport, like people were bragging and boasting about how cold they can make it and for how long. So it's interesting to hear you say that 10 degrees is the ideal for the health benefits. Are there benefits to going colder than that? Is there any point in going colder?
Yeah, of course. There's huge benefits to going colder, because the body wants to adapt,
right?
And it will, from an evolutionary perspective. So once you go below a certain temperature, you start to activate different receptors on your skin. So that alters the fight or flight response, but it also alters pain reception, which again will then have an immediate effect on your response or reaction to get away from the discomfort. So once you go below maybe 8 or 9 degrees, it starts to activate something called nociception,
right,
which is linked to pain or potentially temperature that's causing damage to the skin. So the fight or flight response is much more rapid to step away in that temperature. which is why a lot of people, they get into it because they stand up straight away. It's not it's an automatic response to spring to life and get away from something that's uncomfortable, like putting your hand on a hot kettle.
Yeah.
It's you don't know you're letting go. It's just the same as seeing a cat run across a road and you've hit the brake before you've even seen it. Your nervous system's watching you really closely. So once you go below this 8 degrees, you're in a different realm of fight or flight, really. So, which is why we don't really use that in the therapy to begin with.
Yeah.
Because we want response, not reaction. We don't want this kind of, because once you're already in that, the nervous system's like, oh shit, get out.
So you're saying that, so if you go colder, the benefit is that you're training your body's kind of involuntary reflex to situations in general. You know, does that spread on from just your involuntary reflex to cold to involuntary reflex to situations in life? You know, is that the idea?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So these times in life where you may gasp or you may hold your breath or avoid or turn away or close your eyes or physically want to dissociate from a stressful situation, your body performs habits. And they're normally habits to get you that to safety. And this happens really early on when you're a baby, and you'll probably recognize this from your own children, is that they're quite comfortable when they're babies and they get to a certain age, maybe when they're 2, around that sort of age where they start to kind of avoid and they're frightened of little things for whatever reason. Things never used to frighten them. It's like, well, you normally was all right with dogs before, but when one jumps up at you, it's like, as they turn away and they close their eyes and they hold their breath and they gasp. And normally it's in this kind of, this sort of thing. And this is what we kind of want to avoid when we're getting in the cold. And these kind of behaviors, the head down, closing up, hands under your arms, these are all things we should avoid really doing when we're in the cold.
Interesting.
Because the habits of dissociation, and we want to try and see if we can move away from those habits of dissociation, especially with PTSD. You know, because sometimes habits of dissociation with PTSD is walking barefoot for 20 miles. Because something's triggered you from your military past or whatever. You know, and then they come back and say, I didn't even know where I was. So the brain will go fight, flight, or freeze. It will dissociate and remove to try and protect you. So we're working closely with those responses and habitual behaviors.
Okay. And so it's that kind of, that's the therapy. That's what you're not getting at the 10 degrees, 11, 12 degrees or whatever. So when you're having a cold shower, you kind of, I don't think it ever goes that cold, even in the winter in England. So that's where it really is ice baths that would add that kind of level of depth of benefit.
Yeah, and the ice bath does have a huge benefit as long as the intention is set. You're acclimatized, your body's used to it, your physical body is used to it, your heart is used to it, and you've not eaten food before you go in. Obviously, if you eat a lot of food, you've got this huge rush of blood to your digestive system. So you don't really want to eat a lot of food before getting in the cold. A bit like mom and dad used to say, don't eat before you go swimming, you know, for all kinds of reasons. But when you get into 5 degree cold and you can do it in a way that you couldn't get into 12 degrees once, and you're more calm and collected in 5 degrees than you were in 12, that's something that's very specific that's happened in your nervous system that puts you in command of stress.
Yeah, so I guess for a few kind of warnings to all of this as well is that I actually, when I got into cold water showers, I then bought an ice bath for our back garden, and this was about the time when I was launching Exhale, and you know, launching a business is intensely stressful, and especially doing so in the middle of lockdown, when the whole world is in turmoil. Trying to launch a business, having just quit your job 3 weeks before lockdown, it was very, very, very stressful. Then I bought this ice bath in the garden, and I was having a 5-minute ice bath. I got kind of, you know, carried away with the whole thing. Had 5-minute ice baths mid-afternoon every day, like every single day, and it was my thing. I had to do 5 minutes, and I had to get it as cold as possible. It was always in the single digits. But then after doing that for about 6 months to a year, I felt like my whole nervous system just was crushed. Like it like really kind of destroyed it. And then I basically lost any ability to deal with any cold. And I'd go to the beach even in the summer and I'd be shivering even on a summer's day, because I think my body was just overloaded with stress. And, maybe because I had an autoimmune condition, or maybe my stress tolerance is lower than other people's, but I feel like everyone needs to be very conscious of the total burden of stress that they're putting on their bodies. And ice is a huge stress. Breathwork can be a stress. Like all these things that we talk about are stresses, which on their own, in the context of other things going on in your life at the time, are probably amazing for your health. But I was also training for ultra marathons at the time, which definitely didn't help as well. So all of these intense stresses was just too much for me. So I guess it's not for everybody at all times of their life.
No, listen to your body, man. Listen to your body. And this is, one of the questions that you sort of sent to me before is listen to your gut, listen to what your body is telling you, feel your body. Sometimes it's going to tell you lies. Sometimes the brain is going to tell you lies. That shivering that you had on the beach could have been kind of behavior in your nervous system that wasn't really activating shivering thermogenesis at the time. It wasn't making you shiver because you were cold. It was making you shiver because it didn't want you to get cold. So it could be telling you a message. It's delivering you a message that it's like, that's not really happened before. So why is it telling me that? It's not really all that cold out here. It's kind of telling you that you shouldn't get cold. So, cold is amazing and it can be utilized to great effect, but it can also raise cortisol levels through the roof in certain people.
Yeah.
And if you're training to run ultra marathons, your inflammation cortisol can be quite high a lot of the time anyway, and especially trying to run a business. This is why cold water therapy, unlike the likes of Gary Brecker, etc., who say on Instagram, hey, everybody can do this. And Wim Hof say, hey guys, this is for everybody. You get in, you do this, you do that. It's not for everybody. And women respond slightly differently to the cold as well, that a lot of people have alluded to. They do, physically, mentally, emotionally. They respond differently to the cold. So it's understanding what's working for you.
Yeah.
And this is why you never go full on in at 5 degrees. I'm just going to, everybody's telling me that this is good for me. I'm going to jump into 5 degrees.
Yeah.
That normally has the same effect every time. It's very specific fight or flight. And I would say maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10, people don't go back to it because it's like, yeah, it was great. Afterwards, I felt wonderful, but I really didn't like it. It's not for me.
So I heard you use a great analogy where you're saying people wouldn't, if you've gone from sitting on the sofa all day, every day, you're not just going to get up and just run a marathon and sign up for a marathon tomorrow without doing the training. And 5 degrees cold is as big a stress on your heart and your body as running a marathon or whatever. So just build up to it. Just don't treat it like you're treating some other extreme sport effectively. Or, just approach it with caution. Slowly build up.
Yeah, for sure. And we didn't really start, if you listen to the work of Professor Mike Tipton at Portsmouth, it's like, we didn't really start looking into the possibility of what cold shock was doing until the Titanic went down.
Right.
And, there was 1,500 deaths with that. And I would imagine that most of those deaths were cold shock response. And if a lot of those people would have been using ice baths and were acclimatized to the cold, there's probably a lot more people would have survived. I know there was no lifeboats and there was other cataclysmic effects at that event, but the cold shock response is massive. So if you can acclimatize slowly and use it effectively and understand where your limits are, then, you're going to be getting far more from it. Not everybody's good for 5 degrees. It's a given.
Yep.
Just the same as not everybody's good for fasting. Not everybody's good to drink coffee. Coffee's so good for you.
Yeah.
But for some people, their nervous system and their body is just like, coffee's not for me. Don't want to, poo-poo your coffee. Obviously. But
what about timing coffee with cold? Should you be having? Is there any? Because I wonder, because some people say drinking a cup of coffee spikes cortisol, so I guess you wouldn't want to do it before going into the cold, maybe after the cold, or not near the cold.
Yeah, I would say almost certainly leave it at least an hour, maybe longer before you get in the cold, if you've had a couple of shots of espresso, you don't really want your heart rate being up there before you're about to enter into a practice where it's going to potentially make you tachycardic, which your heart rate goes over 100 beats per minute.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to put yourself there. You want your body to be empty. You want it to be accepting. You want there to be no food, no drink.
Yeah.
Just some water. Hydration, water is really important when getting in the cold.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so when I first came to see you, you were doing the Wim Hof technique, that hyperventilation before. Now you have a different breath work, modality that you do before getting into the cold. So would you say that people at home, if people have ice baths, like what type of breath work or what breath routine should they couple with their cold showers or their ice baths to help? Like, how should they think about breathing and integrating breathing into that?
What I would say is just go and get in. And the reason I say that is because the body's used to performing habits. And what you'll generally tend to find is that people have ice baths at home, they'll start to produce habits really quickly. So especially if it's cold outside, and it's dark or it's at night, when you're dipping in the day and dipping at night are completely different animals. And, they change their nervous system response dramatically. And your environment is important too. If you're in a ginnel, in a brick ginnel, compared to overlooking a field with horses, they're going to have different responses to the individual because of what's visually about. So what's visually in front of you is really important. But you'll start to form certain habits. You start to take a cup of tea in with you each morning when you do it, or you take the dog down with you, or you get your robe and you put it in the same place each time. And I said, ready for when I come out. They're all kind of dissociative behaviors, really, because it's like it's making something that is uncomfortable going to be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would say is that if you're going to go in, just set your intention to go in, but just get in.
Yeah.
Don't really prepare yourself with any breath work, because if you were going to have stress delivered to you unbeknown to you outside, you wouldn't do any prep. So let the body get used to having no prep and just getting uncomfortable.
Okay.
So that's why I don't really do any preparation in terms of breathing before getting in the cold. Just taking a couple of breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, step in on the exhale. Any commitment to the cold should be on the exhale.
Step in on the exhale. Got it. Okay. Quote of the day.
Which is how I...
And then during the cold, so it's like long, slow exhales, right? Long, slow exhales to help you. So as you exhale, you kind of activate the parasympathetic side of your nervous system, which is the rest and digest. So if you do long, slow exhales while you're in the cold, that should help relax your body and calm your nervous system and help you deal with it better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So from what we know about the inhale and the exhale, the inhale is by default more connected to the sympathetic side of your nervous system, the fight flight response.
Yep.
So this is why we wouldn't really want to sort of step in and take a gasp. Okay. And I would say, 99% of the people that think that they're going to gasp when they get in the cold water with me, they don't. And it's like, that's the first time I've ever got into cold water in my life, and I've not done that weird sort of gaspy breathing. Why is that?
Yeah.
I said, because you're in command of your breathing. It's the only thing that we have a relatively firm control over. Okay, when we're getting in the cold or when we're nervous or we're frightened, we do have control over our breathing. There are some times where your nervous system will kick in and it has to take over. But if you can consciously focus on your breathing and get into a pattern where you're in command of your breath and you're focusing on nothing but your breath when you're getting in the cold, it really, really changes the outcome. So, and you'll see Wim Hof instructors, and I show videos to my instructors all the time of one guy in America. I won't mention his name, it doesn't matter. But he says, hey guys, we're going to go and get into our ice bath. Let's go. And it's straight away, it's so it's already getting rid of all that CO2, already putting the body in a state that it wouldn't normally be in before it receives this stress that we normally get in the office or at work or at home. It's just, it's changing the physiology straight away.
Yeah.
Just get in.
Yeah.
Just get into your ice bath.
Yeah.
And this guy, when he gets in, his head goes down. He's got a bit of a nervous twitch with his eyebrow that he doesn't do when he's talking normally.
Yeah.
So those are habits of his body trying to get out of a comfortable situation.
Yeah.
I have emailed the guy and said, look, you know, this thing with your eyebrow that you keep doing, you know, have a look at it. And he's not come back to me yet.
I'm just going to interrupt today's podcast to say, if you're enjoying the conversation today, subscribe to our email newsletter. So we send out a weekly email sharing the breakdown of the latest podcast episode. That comes out every Tuesday. And then every Sunday, me and my wife and co-founder Kirsty send an email newsletter out. I think we're up to edition 200 now. We've been sending it out every week, every Sunday for the last 3 years. And we literally keep our finger on the health and wellness pulse. We share the latest research, the latest trends, hacks, science, and more. So head to exhalecoffee.com and subscribe to our email newsletter, or click the link in the show notes. Right, back to the show. It's so funny. We have this little swim club in Portugal, and year round we go for a sea swim. We meet up once a week. We'll go for a swim in the sea, and this time of year the water's like 20 degrees, so it's pretty warm, really, in the grand scheme of things. In the winter it drops to about 14, 15, but still,
Wow.
as we're going in the water, which isn't that cold, but feels quite cold. As we're getting in the water, everyone's kind of screaming and everyone's kind of hunching their shoulders, and like it's the worst thing ever. And it's a bit of a joke, you know. There's like a group of 20 to 30 of us who are all like, we do it together. But in reality, we probably should just kind of walk in there and actually kind of, you know, detach yourself from what you're actually doing. Just walk in there. Don't even think about, you know, don't even think about the cold. Don't think, oh, this is going to be cold, I'm not going to enjoy this. Just get in there and just start swimming. Really lose the drama, ditch the drama.
Ditch the drama, ditch the habits, but also really, really take note of your environment. Take note of the temperature, how you're feeling in general before you even start, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the visuals, what's going on in that environment, how does it look? How does your nervous system respond to what you're about to do? You know, how are you responding to that? So if I said, you know, and for the purpose of the listeners as well, the people watching, if I said to you, I'm going to give you two choices. The temperature's still the same. It's 8 degrees outside, pretty cold. And the water temperature is 10 degrees, both the same temperature. Now, if this is your first time, do you want to get in the sea in Blackpool where it's a bit murky and you can't see what's in the water? Or do you want to get into crystal clear water? Which one do you want to do?
Crystal clear.
You want to get into crystal clear. Why? Because the nervous system doesn't really want to be uncomfortable when it can't see what's going on. You see? So by default, the brain will try and point you in the direction of something that's more comfortable. Okay. So which is why when you're taking people into cold water tanks, they can always see where their feet are. If you take somebody into a river and they can't see where their feet are, it doesn't really take much. A leaf or a piece of twig or something to go past their foot, and their reaction and response is, what's that? And they're in fight or flight already.
Right.
So yes, in that situation, you have to step them back, let them recover, let them regain, and then bring them back in again. There's nothing in here.
Okay.
Just a leaf.
Okay, cool.
But that can quickly spiral in the brain to fish, your childhood, your trauma, your past, sharks. I've had all sorts of things commented about what might be in a river in the Peak District. Crocodiles, you know, otters.
Shopping trolleys.
Well, anything really. But do you see what I mean? In terms of the association to what's comfortable and what's uncomfortable. We have to examine all the factors. When we're getting into cold.
Okay, and then what about the flip side? Do you ever do anything around heat exposure and sauna, or have you never gone down that route?
Yeah, I'm working quite closely now with heat and cold as well, because obviously getting in the heat is the opposite end of the spectrum, but still deeply connected to what makes us feel comfortable and what makes us feel uncomfortable. So the cold is obvious. We spend 9 months in 50 odd degrees. It always stays about the same temperature, whether it's 2 degrees outside and your mum is freezing cold. That maintains the same temperature to keep you safe. So you come out of there into a colder environment most of the time than what you are when you're in that warm liquid. Okay. So we understand the cold. The heat is something that happens afterwards. So the nervous system reacts to heat a bit differently. Some people really don't like the heat, and especially people, men and women that are ex-military and they've been working in the desert and stuff. When you take them through heat therapy, they're like, mm-mm.
And by heat therapy, do you mean sauna?
Yeah. So
Or is there another type?
using a convection heat,
Right.
not infrared,
Okay.
but using convection heat to stress the body. So after maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, you'll send signals will be sent from your hypothalamus to open up sweat glands. You start to feel a bit easier in there. Then it'll start to feel a bit difficult again.
Yeah.
But then these habits of dissociation and habits of avoidance start to come in and fight or flight. And this is, really, really recognized mainly in men in saunas. But you'll notice that when people go into saunas, they come in and they're sort of, "Hi, you okay? Yeah, not bad, thank you." And they're sat up and they're on the top deck.
Yeah.
And then after a few minutes, they'll start to feel a little bit more a bit uncomfortable, a bit more sort of fidgety, sort of moving around a little bit more. And then this is men mainly, but they'll come down to the elbows will come on the knees and they'll come down here, head down. Yeah. And this is a way of kind of avoiding, again, it's a dissociation of being uncomfortable. And then the head will come into the hands and then the big breaths come on and then they move down to the lower level.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's fight or flight. So you've retreated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you keep going into the sauna, insisting that you face the door, then there's something connected to that. So what I would say to you, if you're going to use the sauna, don't always sit in the same place, sit in the dark, don't face the door.
Yeah.
See if it affects your ability to stay in longer. And more often than not, it does.
It's so interesting. It's probably the biggest takeaway from today for me is think about how you hold yourself, how your body is and how you react physically to heat, cold, to any stressor, and if you let your body react in the way that you've always reacted, I guess it's breaking those cycles, those patterns. We've built up these patterns over years because something when we're a child maybe happens negative and you react in a certain way and you just keep on doing it forever. And I guess sauna and cold is a way of breaking those reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And not always breaking them, still do them if you wish, but know that you're doing them.
Right.
Because it's obviously, in terms of neuroplasticity, understanding why you've done it, and sometimes I'm in the sauna and I forget, and I come down here and I'm like, I have a little bit of a chuckle to myself and then I open up again. My palms come up.
Yeah.
My body comes back up. I don't close my eyes and I'm back here again. And it feels more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To be open here,
Yeah.
And as soon as I go back down here again, it feels more comfortable and I feel better. And then I come here again and it feels more uncomfortable. Well, after the other one, after the other one, after the other. And I get people to feel it and they're like, wow, 100%. When I'm down here and my head's down, I feel it's less hot.
Yeah.
So it's identifying your behavior when you're stressed. And by utilizing that and by allowing yourself to be open and be uncomfortable, but to stay in command of it.
Love it. That's amazing.
Did you see?
I love it.
And that's what's kind of it's been explained in the Wim Hof method, but it's just not really being explained in that way.
Love it. So, and I was having a look on your Instagram. It seems that there's one video on there of you, was it pulling a sled for 50 kilometers wearing a face mask with, is it mouth taped as well? Or is there some kind of hypoxic element? So, you seem very keen to put yourself under a lot of discomfort. Like why would one do that? And what were you doing exactly?
When I'm working with some of my clients, I get them to be uncomfortable in loads of different ways. And it's finding really what's uncomfortable for each individual. And, obviously pulling a sled with a mask on and not being able to breathe is very uncomfortable. Obviously there's like a claustrophobic effect. And the body's response to not being able to get oxygen is always quite the same. And people obviously physically react in a certain way, hands on the hips. When they can't breathe, they put their shoulders back. hands on the knees, head down, and sort of just trying to get more air in, hands on the, all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just showing them what they're doing when the body's telling them that they've not got enough oxygen. Yet at the time they do.
Yeah.
So the reason why I wear these masks, these altitude masks, they're trying to mimic kind of what it would be like training at altitude, which isn't really possible, obviously, because the actual pressure of oxygen in the air at Kilimanjaro is a lot less. The pressure gets a lot less the further up you go above your head. So the pressure isn't really a thing. It's trying to restrict the amount of oxygen that's going into your body and increase and improve your CO2 tolerance in your body.
And is that a similar thing to the mouth taping? Because mouth taping before sleep, like I think we actually wrote a blog on our website about 4 years ago, interviewing you about mouth taping before sleep. But is that something you'd recommend? Like, why do you do that? Do you still do it? 'Cause this was a few years ago. You still believe in it?
Yeah, still doing it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and obviously not when I'm poorly, not when I've got a cold, not when I've got any kind of respiratory or sinus infection or anything like that, or rhinitis. Not mouth taping, and just a safety warning again here, mouth taping is not for everybody. If you suffer with sleep apnea and you don't know what sleep apnea is, if you're a prolific snorer, it would benefit you, but for some people, it could be potentially lethal. So not everybody should mouth tape. And again, you would have to seek medical advice, get some advice from your GP before you entertain anything like that, especially if you're on a CPAP machine, anything like that. So just be really careful.
I was at an event like a few weeks ago, and there was a company there with a stand who were giving out mouth tape, and it was a family pack. So there was like 2 for the parents and 2 for the kids. It's like, is this something that kids should be doing as well? Sorry for the random segue, but I was really surprised to see mouth tape made specifically for kids.
Yeah, the percentage of kids with ADHD that mouth breathe at night and snore and have sleep disorder breathing. Yeah, if you listen to Patrick McKeown talk about this, he knows far more about it than I do. But the statistics are super high, Alex. So it's like breathing has a huge detrimental effect at night. In terms of how you're breathing and how many times you stop breathing in the night, how many times you have an event of an apnea where you're not breathing at night is having an effect on how your brain gets rid of information it didn't really need from the day before. REM sleep, it affects your body's ability to regulate your temperature at night and your fluid levels. This is why people going to the toilet in the middle of the night when you get to a certain age isn't necessarily about your bladder getting weak, et cetera, or your age. It's something to do with maybe how much oxygen you're getting at night and your respiratory rate. So yeah, mouth taping is brilliant if you're healthy and you've got a clear nose and you've not got a deviated septum. But I would say anybody that was thinking about taping up at night, and it can be good for you, I would say tape up during the day first while you're conscious.
Okay.
Maybe walking up and down stairs with the tape on, see how comfortable that feels.
Yeah.
And the general rule is that if you can sit watching telly, you're healthy and you're happy to sit there with tape on watching telly and you're comfortable, you'd be fine at night.
And so, and you do it because what's the benefit to nasal breathing over mouth breathing? Why would you want to take your mouth?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, if you open your mouth, and again, Patrick McKeown alludes to this a lot, and James Nestor talks a lot into this, and read the book Breath by James Nestor. It's an incredible book. If you wanted to learn about how we should be breathing, if you open the mouth, look in the mirror, and look inside your mouth, there's nothing in there to do with breathing at all. It's your teeth, your taste buds, your tongue, your saliva, the action of your tongue to drop food into your gullet. It's all about food, really. But obviously, we need 2 airways. Because you can't eat and breathe at the same time, et cetera, which we need to do when we're breastfeeding.
Right.
Again, just not enough time to go into all of that today. Yeah. But your nose is the organ for breathing. It's an air conditioning unit that's specifically designed, this sort of billiard ball sized piece of equipment above the roof of your mouth is designed to warm air. It's designed to cool it. It's designed to moisten it and not let too much moisture out. There are these spirals and turbinates that spin the air as it goes through into your body that collects dust, pollen, particles. This is an amazing bit of kit, something that I wasn't using probably most of my life.
I think a lot of people probably aren't. Yeah.
No. And, this is the organ for breathing. And, the statistics of teenagers with ADHD who mouth breathe, they're way over 50%. So, those numbers are high. And the more they look into it, they're noticing that breathing pattern disorders are linked to ADHD and mental health disorders.
Oh, really? So they could potentially cause them, or are you saying that you could use them to help them?
Yeah, I suppose it's which comes first, really, the chicken or the egg. It's like with these negative feedback loops in the body, if you're breathing in a certain way, it will affect your brain and your nervous system. Your brain and your nervous system will affect how you breathe. So basically, in terms of what they're doing with Buteyko and oxygen advantages, is it's trying to find homeostasis a lot more effectively by getting you to functionally breathe in a certain way that allows your body to tolerate CO2 for longer, and for your body to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is a natural vasodilator. It's good for your vascular system.
Okay.
Anybody that comes to me that says they've always got cold hands and feet all the time, I get them to do something called a Bolt score to see where their tolerance is to CO2.
Okay.
And, this normally helps to identify where people's nervous systems are at as well. Because people that are anxious, people that suffer with PTSD, etc., they tend to have lowish Bolt scores.
Right.
And once you improve that CO2 tolerance, it slows the breathing down. It elongates that exhale, that important exhale that I speak about when we're getting in the cold. Some people can only manage to sort of breathe in for 4 seconds, but only might even manage maybe a 5-second exhale before trying to get another breath again.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily because their lungs aren't the right size, or because they've got asthma, or because they're anxious. It's because their physical body, their chemoreceptors in their body can't cope with the rising levels of CO2. So that can be changed by pulling sleds and wearing masks and wearing tape and holding your breath.
Amazing. I feel inspired. I feel like I need to do the Bolt score. I feel like my hands and feet get quite cold quite easily. So I feel like I should probably do. Maybe if there's a link I can include in the show notes, so people at home can do the Bolt test themselves.
Yeah, and of course you can just log onto YouTube. You can go and follow Pastor McKee on the Oxygen Advantage. I think I've got one on there as well on YouTube under Breathevolution. But the Bolt score is relatively accurate.
Yeah.
Basically, it's you would sit there, just hands on your legs, sat up, nice and straight and comfortable in a chair. You're just breathing normally, like you would be watching telly at home. You take a normal breath in, a normal breath out, pinch your nose, hold your breath with your lungs empty, start your timer, holding your breath. You're just focusing in on your body then in that first definite desire to breathe. So you'll feel your diaphragm jump a little bit. You let go and then recover through your nose, stop your timer when you take your recovery breath.
Right.
That time in seconds is how long it takes your chemo reflex in your body to tell your diaphragm to drop to take a breath. Now, over a period of time, that time in seconds can be increased, which will allow you to actually exhale for a lot longer and then pause and then take a breath in again. So it helps with functional breathing by your body being able to cope with higher levels of carbon dioxide in your arterial blood.
And is that something people should do like every day? Like, is that specific pattern something to do to improve their Bolt score? Or is it just a one-off test kind of thing?
Yeah, especially, if your breathing is functional and you're healthy, then no, absolutely not. But if you find that, if you have ADHD, or if you have asthma, or if you have a myriad of other conditions like circulatory issues, or you've got Raynaud's syndrome, or you get cold hands and feet all the time, or you've got high blood pressure. There are certain videos you can watch on YouTube where by altering your breathing, you can reduce your blood pressure. So they are intrinsically linked. Carbon dioxide is a natural vasodilator, yet bodies are adapting to cope at lower levels of CO2 because of poor patterns and behaviors in breathing.
Amazing. Okay, well, I could talk all day about this, and I'm sure we have. I think last time we spoke about it, I think it was about a 4-hour session, wasn't it? So, but I feel like we should probably, we've probably covered, we've probably just about run out of time. But before we go, there's 3 final questions that I ask everybody. So, first one is, what's one habit you're trying to stop?
Yeah. So maybe say so. I think the one habit that I'm trying to stop is staying awake at night longer than I need to. So feeling as if I can get more in the day.
Right.
So when my body's telling me to sleep, whether that's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, getting out of a habit of staying awake, even if it's reading, which is more beneficial rather than watching telly and stuff like that, or being or procrastinating on your phone or whatever. Just go to sleep. Sleep is so important.
Yeah,
you know,
it's funny. Everyone has a time that they go to sleep, but actually, what you're saying is maybe that you should just be listening to your body, and if you feel tired, go to sleep.
100%. That's one of the big differences for me. Yeah, is I feel tired at 8 o'clock, go to bed.
Wow. Okay. What's the most overrated piece of advice out there, do you think?
I would probably say when people say follow your heart, I would say follow your gut.
Yeah.
Because following your heart isn't really a thing. Following your gut is.
Yeah.
And they're different. So following your heart is overrated.
Okay, got it. And what's one habit that you think those listening should add into their daily life?
One habit I would say almost certainly that everybody should do every day is just get outside. You know, we are creatures of nature. Whether it's, and not everybody is fortunate enough to live in the Peak District, or live near the countryside. But just put your head out your window. You're in a flat, put your head out the window, smell the air, feel the cool breeze on your face, go and stand out in the rain, put your bare feet on the grass, put your bare feet on the tarmac. Just feel your body connected to the earth, connect to the ground. It's super important. That I would say that is a really good habit to start with. Get back to nature.
Love it. Amazing. There's so much that I'm going to change about my own daily routine after this conversation. So,
Too much, I hope.
Right. So, if people want to look you up, do you want to let people know where they can find you, or any specific, anything specific you want to plug that you're working on at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm running my next trauma-informed core water therapy instructor training course in the Peak District in March, end of March next year, and you can find some details on that on my website at breathevolution.com or breathevolution.co.uk, or you can head to coldwatersafety.co.uk to find out more information on that. And of course, there's the usual social stuff, so you can head to Instagram. And I don't put much on Instagram at the moment. I'm so busy with work at the moment that I don't really get to sort of go on there. But I'm going to make a dedicated effort now with it being cold to putting some more stuff out there on socials. And I do have a TikTok.
You've got a TikTok
account as well.
Wow.
I have a TikTok. Yeah, I'm down with the kids now.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I don't do much on that either. But yeah, just, get out in the cold.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the cold. Yeah. You're not going to freeze to death. Do it carefully, but just be uncomfortable. Is my advice to people. Just be uncomfortable. It's great. It's the best thing I ever did. Get
comfortable being uncomfortable. There you go.
Very much so.
Okay, yeah. Wicked. Thank you, Kev. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, mate. Absolute pleasure, as always.
Right. A huge thank you to Kev from Breathevolution for joining the podcast. I hope you found that as interesting as I did. Some huge takeaways that I'm going to apply to my own daily rituals and practices. And if there's anything that we could have gone into more detail on, if you have any further questions for Kev at all, please ask them in the comments and we can pass them on. If you really enjoyed today's show and you want to hear more like this, you want us to get some good guests on, please give us a subscribe and let's go.